Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday morning, and it's time for Business Leaders Live. I'm Lance Cardoza, and my guest today that'll be on the program joining us here shortly, he's the president of Tutelian & Company. Cliff Tutelian will be joining us here shortly, but before we get going with my guest, Cliff Tutelian, we're going to talk about what's been happening in the market. So yesterday, it was a big sell-off in the market where we were at way below 200, almost 400 points down. And then today, a big surge. So since October, it was one of the worst days in the market yesterday. And then all of a sudden today, and I think a lot of it was the uncertainty of what's going on in China. That could be one of the big issues. There's many things going on, but I can guarantee you, and my friend Cliff Tutelian just joined us here in studio, and could just slide right up there to the mic there, Cliff.
Good morning, Lance.
Good morning. A lot of people made a lot of money yesterday at the market, I'm sure.
I observed.
We'll get you in real close there, Cliff, to that red mic there. Cliff Tutelian, president of Tutelian Company. I've got to know Cliff over the past couple of years, and very familiar with his family, and love hearing the stories and chatting with Cliff. And one of the things that's always impressed me about the Tutelian family as developers is that the pride that Cliff has and his family has for downtown Fresno, and is one of those developers that is always focused on its development, because that's really where your father, John Tutelian, stuck his flag in the ground many years ago. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You've told me some stories. We were chatting yesterday and before this show, and we were talking about, growing up in the business that your father started, John Tutelian. Talk to me about how did it all begin? How long ago? Almost 60 some years ago or more?
It goes all the way back to the late 40s and early 50s. My father has been a long-time resident of Fresno, and of course I was born and raised here in Fresno. And I can recall we didn't live far from downtown. My father's business was at the south side of downtown in the industrial area, and he had made investments in downtown. In fact, right in the area where Civic Center exists, amongst other areas as well. And as a little boy, I was one of those who he took to work with him, starting at a very early age, going all the way back to being in diapers. And so downtown Fresno is near where I grew up. It's where our business always existed. And my dad did a lot of development over the many years in downtown, in the general downtown area, that is. So downtown Fresno is my home, and of course it's a place that's near and dear to my heart.
I know that in a lot of people of that era, growing up with their fathers, you broke your back to learn the business before you got in the business. And you were telling me a story yesterday, and you were talking about working for your father at a young age, and it hit home. Even with me, when you think about this, that everybody was getting their little pay, for their work for the day. Oh, yeah. And you were waiting for your little pay. And what did your father share with you?
Well, I remember one summer I was about 8 years old, and my father was building some apartments, and I was working with my cousin. My cousin had come up here for a summer job, and at the end of the summer, we were all anxious. We were both anxious to get paid. And my cousin got paid, and my dad looked at me, and he says, "You don't get paid. Someday this will be yours." And so, much to my disappointment, I didn't get paid that summer at 8 years old. However, I can tell you that I'm forever grateful for all the time he spent with me and teaching me the hard work ethic and teaching me the business.
We were talking about just before the show began that your father stating his claim on downtown, and it was very important to him. You probably heard over the years him sharing his vision for downtown, and during that time, downtown was Fresno. I mean, there was no north into Fresno, and but over those years, your family stayed focused on the downtown core. And as right now, I feel next week I have a show on the future of downtown, and we have Mayor Brand coming on the show. I'd love to have you on that show too next week. That would be great. But your family has not lost focus on how important the heart of a city is, their downtown, the core of downtown. What was it for your father that, because he could have went out and started things in other places, but downtown was real important to him?
He did. It was important. That was our world, because as you indicated, back then, Shields Avenue was what we know to be Herndon today, and out on Shaw Avenue was literally most, if not all, agriculture. He did wander out, did build a few apartment units out near the university, but downtown, because it was back then our world and our city, the focus was downtown. My father pursued a redevelopment area just in the, actually I forget the name of it, but on Huntington Boulevard, built 131 units and did some industrial development at the southerly part of downtown, which is just on the south side of Freeway 41. Invested in rental homes, as I mentioned already, where Civic Center Square exists today. And as a young man, he took me to work. I had a broom in my hand. I followed him around at City Hall, followed him around wherever he went. And that's how I learned the business. Interesting enough, it is the heart of our city, because when you take a look at the current map and the manner in which the freeways have developed, you can traverse, a person can traverse to and from downtown more expeditiously than from any other part of the city, because all of the freeways do converge upon downtown. And therein lies one of the reasons that the development and the future of our downtown is so important to the vitality of the rest of our community. People come to a city that don't really know the way around downtown. It's just natural for them to have a curiosity about downtown.
Absolutely. And I think people from the outside that come here to bring their family maybe out of the Bay Area, or to get out of the rat race, if you will, out of LA, and they're looking for a different life or start a business, and even economic development. I know the Fresno EDC, which will be joining us next week on that show as well, talking about future downtown. Companies are always amazed, and I get told this by economic developers, that you can get anywhere in our town in 15 to 20 minutes. Being the size that we are, the fifth largest city in the state of California, which is, to me, a huge economic development issue in other cities with commuters and so forth.
That's correct. So that's a tribute to the design of our freeway systems and the forward thinking of our policymakers, Caltrans, of course, but most importantly, that is a component of opportunity that ourselves and other developers should value, and many have taken advantage of that. So the opportunity's there, and we've got a long ways to go to get our city to where everybody's sense of pride and honor, it needs to be taken.
Needs to be taken, and be very proud of Fresno, but also proud of our, to me, truly, I look at our developers, because our developers can go anywhere and develop. And let the record be told, too, right here at Business Leaders Live. I have President Cliff Tutelian of Tutelian Company. You develop downtown, but you've gone north and you've gone other places, and you have developments in other cities, I'm sure, and you do business where business is good, but the heart is here, and you really want to see this city thrive as a whole, not just downtown, but together cohesively working. Like you were talking about the freeway system, our policymakers, the pressure is applied, and the pressure is to be able to work with those, to me, our developers that really care about our city. And for the future of what we're doing with Fresno, we're all together in this big metropolitan area. But a lot of people say it's a little town still.
We are a big little city, that is for sure.
We're a big little city doing big things. I have Cliff Tutelian on the program Business Leaders Live, and we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more Cliff Tutelian here on Business Leaders Live every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Join me right here on Talk Radio 1680 KGED, and any of the past episodes of Business Leaders Live you can get at lancecardoza.com. And we want to thank all of our Facebook fans that are following us right now at Talk Radio 1680 KGED. You get behind the scenes during the commercial breaks on Facebook. We'll be right back, right here in studio.
You are listening to Business Leaders with Lance Cardoza. Here's Lance Cardoza.
Hello, everybody. We're back live in studio, Talk Radio 1680 KGED. The big Super Bowl's coming up this weekend, and keep in mind, right here on Talk Radio 1680 KGED, if you're busy and you're out there working and you can't be in front of that big screen watching that big Super Bowl, you can tune in right here at 1680 AM, or you can go to talkradio1680.com and catch the Super Bowl. So that'll be right here live on Talk Radio 1680 KGED. It's Business Leaders Live every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. And in studio, I have the president of Tutelian Company, Cliff Tutelian. Cliff, thank you for coming on the program. I know that you don't do a lot of media, and I love your family's story because I know that it's not easy to be in this business and really lead the future and other developers here in Fresno, the future of our big city, Fresno. It takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of vision. And I know that you have a big vision for downtown, but you have a bigger vision for Fresno.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I want to add one other element to this, a lot of work.
A lot of work, yeah.
We are certainly committed to doing the work and doing the best we can in generating projects that will be a quality contribution to our focus is downtown, but to whatever we do in the city of Fresno.
So, Cliff, when you grew up, you were talking about the beginning, and if you move right in close to that wind mic, yeah, it's like being a rock star. You got to get right in there. There you go. When you grew up, you put in the sweat equity to the future of Tutelian and Company, what it's become with your father. But there was a long road before that, being a youngster and going away to school and sort of finding your way and what you needed to do for the future of this business. Talk to me when that epiphany happened, when that light bulb went off and said, I'm not a laborer and I see the future and this is what I think I need to do. What was the turning moment for you?
You know, interesting enough, my father believed in hard physical work, and he told me, he says, when you learn how to work with your back, it's going to make your mind stronger. And so you're going to learn how to work and work hard. And I won't say that it was necessarily a moment when a light bulb came on. I always understood from a very early age that I was being groomed to do something and make a contribution to society, and of course, the best we can do. I'm far from perfect, but I will tell you, we've worked hard and done our best to generate quality projects and quality contributions to the community. When I was a little boy, as I mentioned, my father took me everywhere, and he wanted to teach me the business and teach me how to work, and he made it very clear. Started following him around, and when I was old enough to push a broom, that's where it started. And I can recall we also had a trucking business. I was driving a Freightliner when I was 12. And it was all about hard work, and it was all about the work ethic. And as you mentioned, I'm not one for publicity, and so I'm a little shy on that. I always focused on hard work, and I thought that that would take care of itself.
Yeah.
But that being said, little by little, with time and age and getting involved in the project origination and the construction as a laborer, and little by little, it just evolved.
One of the things you shared with me was that there was a moment that you were working and you were breaking your back so your mind could work like your father taught you, and you would learn on the job. And then you said, I'm going to go to law school. And it was probably a big need with the Tutelian Company and in the future of contracts and being able to put together the future growth of the business. What was that moment like when you broke that to your father?
Well, he was glad to know. That was at a time when it was 1975, and my father had just purchased a building right on the corner of M and Tulare. In fact, that was the, aside from the fact that he had already owned some land and rental houses in that immediate area, that was the beginning of the Civic Center Square concept. That
Beautiful part of downtown Fresno, might I add too. Very, very nice.
Well, we certainly like to think so, and thank you for the compliment. At that time, I was working in construction, following to City Hall, going to different meetings, and it was even an experience back when we didn't have computers, cell phones, or anything. We had the yellow pages and a phone on a desk.
Yeah.
And without really knowing anything, one of my jobs was to call and seek out tenants. And I'm proud to say that the first tenant we got for the building, I actually made the phone contact, despite the fact I didn't really know any of the negotiating points. But I'm happy to share with you, I at least made the initial contact. We were doing construction work, the construction materials, the demo. Up on the roof, I was welding, did some structural components, did the sprinkler system just on that very building at that corner. And I decided that this wasn't for me, so I said to my dad, I said, I'm going to go out of town for a couple of days. I'll be back. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going to go apply for law school so I can get out of this job. And
You're going to chase the new career.
He said, good.
Good.
And he got what he wanted.
Yeah.
So went to law school, and in 1978 graduated with a degree in law.
You know, it's something it really young minds in business too, because they want everything handed to them. And your father, very successful, never handed things to you. You worked for what you had. And I remember you saying, I think it was yesterday, you talked about being in school and father saying there's a difference between need and want.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, share that, because I think even business people need to hear that. And it develops successful business people versus people that are handed everything. What did he share with you about need and want?
Well, when it came to school, there was once a time I said, I don't want to go to school. He says, you have to go to school.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to learn two things when you go to school. You're going to first learn how to do something you don't want to do. And because all throughout life, you're going to be faced with doing things you don't want to do. And he says, and second, and most important, whether or not you learn the substantive materials, you're going to learn how to think. So you're going to school. And I said to him, I says, well, you have to pay for it. And he says, I'll tell you what. I'll give you anything you need, but anything you want, you're on your own. And that's actually with a passion for cars. That's how I got to buying and selling cars. And by the time I got out of school, I actually had bought and sold several cars and vehicles.
And that was helping fill the want instead of what you really needed.
There you go.
But you had to figure it out on your own. And I love that what you need, food, clothes, and those things I'll take care of as long as you go to school. But what you want is a different story, and it really makes you hungry.
Yes, and I want to add that I'm very grateful for that approach, even though at the time growing up it was quite painful. But, you know, we are responsible for what we do. We are responsible for seeking out how to achieve our goals and our dreams. And to start with a dream and make it a goal, you got to have a plan. And that takes perseverance, and it takes hard work, and it takes focus. And that's the way I was driven. And as a family, what we've accomplished since my father's passing, we have both, my sister and I, have been thoroughly instilled with a strong work ethic. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Cliff, talking about, I mentioned next week, February 4th, Mayor of Fresno, Lee Brand, and others will be joining us right here in the studio. And like I said, extend the offer. I want to have you on the program, too, as a developer with a vision of Fresno, but the future of downtown Fresno. And I know that's always been in your sight. And do you see that a lot of businesses are looking to come back to downtown Fresno? I see it happening right now, but being in development, I know you have the Grand, which I want to talk about, beautiful building. Do you see that happening right now?
Yes, I do. And it's an evolutionary process. We have, first of all, since the popularity of downtown descended in the 80s, we have gone through a slow and rebuilding process. We have been blessed by the opportunity of the high-speed rail station and the high-speed rail project originating here in Fresno. Lots of government capitalization, and the reason that I say we've been blessed with the high-speed rail is because it will access Fresno, which historically is an ag-based community, with the opportunity of bringing in significant work pools and corporate entities to and from Fresno. So with that, I have an expectation of growth in terms of office use, development of downtown, the need for more dense housing, as well as the activities that will avail itself outside of Fresno. So people in Fresno have the opportunity to grow by having that very quick transportation reach to the LA basin as well as the Bay Area.
And I know there's a ton of politics behind that whole system, and it's inevitable. It's happening, and they're going somewhere with it. Downtown, that's not a theory. That's a desperate need right now, and you're seeing that from businesses being a developer from the outside world that really are looking at the heart of Fresno, downtown Fresno, planning the routes, and happening right now.
That's so true. I'm proud to say that we have a new tenant at 1401 Fulton, and they're moving from an office space that's north of Herndon. So we're generating a new interest. We're generating a new interest amongst various segments of our community, as well as outside the community. With the construction of Fulton, you're seeing new restaurants coming in, and as I mentioned, it's an evolutionary process. It starts out small, and it grows in terms of magnitude and impact. And as in just about any other city you can think of, it started slow, and Pasadena is one that is a quick example. Started out slow, went through a few leasehold generations, but now it's just a thriving community, and absolutely I look forward to that.
And when you go to downtown Pasadena, that's one of the spots you have to make the stop is downtown Pasadena. Denver, they went through the same process. And many cities that have focused on their heart of their city. I have Cliff Tutelian on the show with Business Leaders Live. We're going to take a short break, and we have Captain Salazar will be joining us. And Captain Salazar, you're familiar with.
Yes,
he's done several events with you with the PAL program and Santa's Village and many things with Tutelian and Company. And he'd like to come on the show to talk about that and talk about PAL and its Mentor Month. That'll be all happening next right here on Business Leaders Live on Talk Radio 1680 KGED.
Giving you the inside story of business leaders in the Valley and beyond. This is Business Leaders with Lance Cardoza.
Welcome back, everybody, to the big studios here at Talk Radio 1680 KGED. Another reminder, Super Bowl's coming up this weekend. Tune in right here on 1680 AM. If you can't be in front of that big screen, you can catch it on the radio right here at 1680 AM. In the studio from Tutelian Company, President Cliff Tutelian. We've been talking about your father's roots, John Tutelian, and the family continuing that focus on downtown Fresno, But as developers, you focused on Fresno as a whole. You have developments in North Fresno that are beautiful and all over our Fresno area, and really focused on the vision. But one of the things we talk about, it's Mentor Month, and Captain Mark Salazar's in studio. And I know, Captain, you've worked very closely with the Tutelian Company and Cliff, and being mentors to youth, and with the PAL program, recently with Santa's Village. But Mentor Month is such a big deal to our police department, connecting with youth. Is that true?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And with the Tutelian Company, they've made an impact for you to be able to provide that mentorship?
A huge impact. So the Fresno Police Activities League, I'm on the board, and 100% of our funding comes through donations and efforts through fundraising. And so last year we had our first ever breakfast at Mr. Tutelian's beautiful building at the Grand. And it was a focused effort. We did it in 36 days, but we raised $30,000.
Wow.
And that $30,000 enabled us to provide a mentorship at our community centers. We also opened up a food pantry for youth that go there, work out, study, and they could then go home with a bag of pistachios and Gatorade and go home. We also have money that was set aside to create a gym in Central and Southeast Fresno this year.
And all from being able to have a place of home and a center to be able to have these activities to raise funds and Tutelian Company. I think, Cliff, you look at it sometimes and you think, I do it because it's something that needs to be done. And we mentioned it was Mentor Month, and you said, well, I'm not mentoring anybody, but you really are. You're mentoring the police department to be able to foster those relationships with the youth of our community. Is that, would you echo that, Captain?
I would. And it's so crucial right now because we have so many neighborhoods in our city that have challenges, and those youth need mentors. And so Fresno PAL in the last 3 years has been really a force in those communities. And we're taking kids. I had a saying, then Police Chief Jerry Dyer asked me what motivated me years ago when he promoted me to sergeant. And I would tell him, I told him this, is the kid that lives in the 400 block of West Strada should feel safe at Champlain, should feel safe just as the kid that lives at Champlain and Perrin. Yeah. Now I'm the commander Northeast at Champlain and Perrin, irony. But it's true, and you can substitute many neighborhoods, it's just not that neighborhood, that need those challenges. And what we've done is we put officers in these different community centers, elementary schools, and our programs, and we're impacting hundreds of kids. And we have a saying, the kids know our name and we know their name. And it's because of philanthropic efforts like Mr. Tutelian that we're able to do that.
Cliff, Mr. Tutelian, it was part of your upbringing, I'm sure. But what was it that told you that I need to help the police department, the PAL program, the Policemen's Activity League, through efforts like Santa's Village and all the different events that you've donated of the facility at the Grand? What was it for you that was the reason behind that?
First, I want to tell you that my heart goes to children, particularly given the complexities of today's society. The children, our future depends on the children, their growth, both educationally and socially. And I think that it's a heartwarming cause and a good cause, a very valuable cause, not only directly to the children, but to contributing to the foundational needs of a growing and healthy society. And not that I'm trying to save the world, but here in Fresno, we're doing what we can to do our part. And going back when I was a little boy, my father one summer, he said, I want you to go to Camp Sequoia. It's a YMCA camp. And at a time when he had no money and they were living in poverty, there was a man that paid the tuition for him to go to that camp. And he said, I went to that camp and I want you to go to that camp. And the one thing that I appreciate and recognize is throughout my life growing up, I've had significant mentors, and it stuck with me that somebody helped my father. He wanted to share that experience with me. So I have a spot for doing things or contributing to activities that involve children.
Absolutely. And that, Captain Salazar, that's a direct reflect on what PAL's program has been able to grow and thrive through Mr. Tutelian and others that have supported the organization. And I know Captain Salazar, Mr. Tutelian, wanted to come on the show and just personally thank you to be able to show that you do make an impact, and many others can make an impact in helping our community. And you're giving the police department the opportunity to be able to do more in those communities.
You know, I'd like to make it clear, in giving, it's a two-way street. And I appreciate the police department, all that they've done. Captain Salazar mentioned the challenges in neighborhoods and how they each have their own challenges. Downtown has its challenges, as do the children of the particular neighborhoods in which he's been involved. And I really appreciate that. That is, like I said, that's the core of our future, how we mentor and how we take care of those young children. They work hard. We've had our challenges. You mentioned development. Well, in the decline and now the rebuilding of downtown, we've had our challenges, and I appreciate Captain Salazar, his department, and that relationship is also something that I'm very proud to be a part of, and I'm honored that he has engaged us to participate. And one other thing I have to tell you, it's so gratifying. They did the work. Humbly, I say, I donated the building and helped all we could. But when you see all those children and all those families lined up, and you see the smiles on their face when those little children are sitting on Santa's lap taking their pictures, it's just, you can't feel anything better than that in the center of your heart.
And I want to share something too. I was out there that day, I think it was Santa's Village, and Captain Salazar, you were in charge of that for 3 years? Yes. 3-4 years, and then now assigned to a different area and working on a different community, or in the community in a different area of the police department. You, one of the things that struck me, and really the light bulb went off big, was our police chief, Andy Hall, out in the street when the street was blocked off and food trucks were there, and he was playing Nerf football with some of the kids. And they were eating it up. You would have thought they were in the Super Bowl. Here's the police chief in uniform throwing the ball with the kids. And I had to video it because it was such a cool, and you could tell he was enjoying it. He truly was getting more out of it than even the kids. The kids were, it was a safe place for them to have fun and enjoy it. And people like Mr. Tutelian with Tutelian Company make those things happen for our community. And those little things like that can change the mindset of one of those kids. And if we change one and we give one that mentorship, it's worth everything. And you deal with it every day, and you see the stuff that goes on in our community, Captain Salazar. So you know that makes a big impact. How do people get involved with PAL more, like Mr. Tutelian and Tutelian Company? How do they do that to help out the PAL program?
You know, you can contact us through the Fresno PAL website. We're having that constructed right now, but through the Fresno PAL website. And also, just quickly, you mentioned Chief Hall. He was planning to stay out there in Santa's Village for 30 minutes, and I think he stayed for an hour and a half. You get wrapped up in the moment, and that was a moment. And Mr. Tutelian was talking about relationships. Relationships are key, because if we don't have relationships, we don't have trust. And there's many parts in our community where we have trust that didn't exist before. And that's very important. And so to get engaged with us is go to our website. The officers that are volunteer, they volunteer. We have no employees. The money that's donated, it goes 100% back into the program, to the kid, to that relationship, and to the program. And so what we want to do is expose our kids to things that they've never been exposed to. We've taken them to the LA Museum of Tolerance in LA. We've taken them to Santa Monica Pier. And so those are things that we want to do. And through the efforts like Mr. Tutelian and some other business leaders that have stepped up, we're going to be able to do that.
Big stuff happening. And what's gratifying to me too is it's not only happening in downtown. I love downtown, but as a whole, as a Fresno community, the police department, and I'm sure you will do great things out in the new community out in Champaign and Perrin. It has its own issues, and it needs its needs. And there's still youth crisis everywhere you turn. There's always youth sometimes that get left behind and need some attention. And those relationships are very important. And being Mentor Month, I know that's a real big thing going on with the PAL program right now. And I'm glad we were able to talk about it here on the program. Captain Salazar, we're going to take a short break. We know you have to leave, but I wanted to give you that opportunity to come on the show. And Mr. Tutelian, I know, is very proud of what they do for the Policemen's Activity League. So I really appreciate you for being on the program.
And thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Cliff Tutelian, we're going to wrap up. When we come back, we're going to share some more information, some more info about the future of downtown Fresno. We're going to talk about the carrying that vision that you've always talked about. That'll happen right here on Talk Radio 1680 KGED. Next week, we will continue the conversation. February 4th, right here in studios, Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., when Mayor Lee Brand and others will be joining us here at the round table on Business Leaders Live. We'll be right back with more Business Leaders Live here on Talk Radio 1680 KGED. And don't forget, Super Bowl this weekend. If you're not in front of the TV, tune in right here on 1680. We'll be right back with more Business Leaders Live.
You are listening to Business Leaders with Lance Cardoza, the behind-the-scenes story of the business shakers and movers in the Valley and beyond. Once again, here's Lance Cardoza.
Hello, everybody. Back in studios here at Talk Radio 1680 KGED. I want to thank Captain Mark Salazar for coming on the program, talking about the Policemen's Activity League, the month of January being Mentor Month. And really, it's a very important program. Tutelian Company and Cliff Tutelian, president, in the studio, my Business Leaders Live. You've supported that program. And Captain Salazar, isn't he a great guy, Cliff? He really is a good guy.
Just a kind-hearted man, and I really appreciate and respect the fact that in as difficult and as tough as they need to be in their job, that he also has such a big heart.
Truly does. Truly has a big heart. And I feel bad. A lot of times our police department, they're dealing with these situations with youth that they can't control it. They can't control it. So if us as business people can step up and do our little part to create that connection with police officers in those communities where youth need it, like you've done and others, I'd say I encourage all business people to really look at the Policemen's Activity League because our city needs it.
Oh, yeah. That's the value and the appreciation I extend toward that. Captain Salazar is that sense of heart. As he mentioned, you need to build trust with the children specifically and the community in general, because that trust allows for communication, and depending on the situation, it could mean intelligence or it could mean mentoring children, and whatever the circumstance may be, it's of an extreme importance in terms of our relationship between the community and the police department, and how it results and generates such results in the upbringing of a quality community.
We're talking about quality community, and one of the big things that's near and dear to my heart and always has been, I've saw it through the rough times, and you've really seen it more than I have, downtown Fresno. And it's the heart of our city. And you say some of those communities that have really grabbed onto it and changed, like Pasadena, there's Denver, there's other ones out there that really, even the Promenade in Santa Monica, at one time was not the best place for business or for restaurants and everything, but Fresno, really, the future downtown Fresno, to me, I see, personally myself, this big resurgence that there's businesses coming into downtown Fresno. Where do you see the future of downtown Fresno, and what do we need to be doing as just people that care about it in the future here?
Well, first, I think it's important in the discussion of the future of downtown to take inventory and recognize all of the valuable assets we have downtown, not to be taken lightly. We have the different districts. The hospital district has grown, and it is one of the renowned burn centers and has all of its value attributes, which we should be and are very proud as a community. We have the government district, which is known coincidentally as the Civic Center District. We're very proud of the Civic Center Square. The Convention Center. We have the Fulton Street, the Fulton District. We have the baseball stadium. We get to add to that the high-speed rail station and all of the activity and opportunity that'll be brought to it. And something that isn't mentioned often, I consider Roding Park as part of the downtown community. And going back to a comment in one of your earlier segments, when people come to a city, it's natural to gravitate to the downtown because the suburbs, you don't know how to get there. And so when you look at downtown and you see the convention center and you recognize the hotels and you have the baseball stadium and you have the Roding Park and the beautiful zoo we have.
Incredible world-class zoo.
Absolutely. And you put all these together and you look at it as a picture and a variety of activity for visitors as well as those that live here. Therein lies the opportunity for the future. And in looking at it like that as a picture, and a picture that serves many interests and many different functions, now we need to take a look at how do we put to work those things that we have in place and should appreciate to make our city better and to make our city grow. We have Bitwise, the North Fulton, all the residential. We have the hospital district. We've got interest in businesses coming back downtown. And we have the new and younger entrepreneurial
sort of a movement happening. Yeah.
And the, what do they call it? The brewery district. So there's a lot of things happening, and we just need to continue on. I've said it this way. I think that in consideration of our socio-demographic that makes up what we are as a community, everybody participating in these development activities should take a look at the best way to optimize that socioeconomic need and accommodate the community to the highest level we can. And the more that we build quality projects and the more quality we bring to downtown, the more interest and appreciation, therefore, we're going to see from the community. And that being said, we happen to be working on a project, and very proudly so, in conjunction with the city of Fresno. And I've said it this way: if we do a good job, people from the north end of Fresno in the evenings and on the weekends will come to this area. And during the day, we will serve the community, and we have a dense working population. So where they go to eat, can they buy, can they serve the lunch for a dual purpose, not only to take a break and have lunch, but also to do a little shopping and serve their needs, so they don't have to go shopping at night where they can just go home. These are the things that we can bring to the community. And there's definitely a strong future, and I'm very optimistic about it.
Look forward to having you sit in on that panel next week with Mayor Brand right here in the studios. That's all the time we have, Cliff. Cliff Tutelian, President Tutelian Company, thank you for joining me.
And thank you for having me on your show.
I appreciate it, Cliff. We'll see you next week. Future Downtown Fresno on the show, Talk Radio 1680 KGED.